Hello, let's talk about test data management, specifically the test data management chapter of the software testing strategy book. This continues our series. We're going to go through the book and give you some of the highlights. Test data management, I don't like the term because it sounds so impressive, and what it is so simple, but you really have to do it if you want to have repeatable results and not spend all day on setup. I did one consulting project, and um, the several of the people doing testing said that they were spending 85% of their day on setup. Well, why was that? Well, they had this very complex application with a configuration screen with a bunch of different variables, and they had different scenarios they wanted to run, and they would set it all up by hand and then put it in and go. Now, or creating profiles, having the data in there. You're making a social media app, you're going to fill it up with data, and you're going to do a searching so you get the right results. And that's a lot of setup, and it's redundant. Like, for the most part, we'll test create page, we'll test tag, we'll test save, edit, add comment. Those be tested. So creating 95 pages that are slightly different so that we can search them, so we can see that we get 93 results, but the 2 results we don't get because they're just different enough they don't qualify for the search. We don't need to do that by hand for sure, and it's a complete waste of time to have an automated script do it. In fact, if you have your automated script do it, it's going to be, unless you parallelize it, it's either going to make the infrastructure incredibly complex, or it's gonna make your CI process get really, really long. So don't do that. Instead, have data, known good data that you manage. And how do you do that? And the first thing we recommend is a standard data seed, and that is have your software have some way of extracting the database and putting it back in, so you can run so you can run knowing what data is in it, knowing what users are in it, knowing what, so you can do searches. The primary problem here is going to be dates. So if you do that and you run a quarterly report after the end of the first month, when you run it, you're only going to get 2/3 the data, because that was 4 months ago, not 3. So you usually need a way to swizzle the dates to bring them up to speed. So typically we'll have some kind of system date function, and then we'll say these things should be 1 month behind system date, 2 months behind system date, 3 months behind. Or you can make your quarterly report arbitrary, and it can pull in dates for what quarter exactly. When does the quarter start? And then you can do 90 or 91 or whatever you do before the quarter. And this is code you got to write one time. It can be kind of annoying, especially if you want to be precise, because is a quarter 90 days? Not really. A year is 365 days. So you're going to have to figure that out. Another way to do that are with synthetic users. Synthetic users can exist, which is just a fancy way of saying users that aren't real, that don't go all the way down, that you can't spend money. And you can use synthetic users in production. So we can log in as this user and do a bunch of stuff in production. We just can't ever hit a credit card. We can't ever do any. Can't hit a warehouse. We can't pull an item off the warehouse and send it to them. We need to segment off parts of the application. We can run those all the time. Another common approach is to pull production data for production refreshes. The problem then becomes, how do we know what the right answers are? Because it's going to be different every time we do it. Also, you lose maybe a day of productivity when you do that. By production, I mean the live system, of course. But one approach to that is you run the old build and get the results, and then you run your changes and you get the results, and you compare them. And then you say, what category are these results different? You say, oh, the difference is all of the things that I was trying to make different. So you could write a select statement and go in the database and figure out what's from the change we're trying to make. What are all the cases that are the change we're trying to make? And then you look at the data that came out, mostly for extract, transform, load applications, but you can do it for lots of things. But you find a way to find the differences between the two, and then make sure the differences between the two are what you expected them to be. And you can also have the chapter deals with regulatory issues with production data, and that's typically the personal health information or the personal information, the credit card information. So we may want to do, well, this is more than that, but from a test data perspective, that's what we're talking about. We may want to do is sanitize that data. So we have production and we have test environment. To create our test environment, we're going to swizzle up Social Security numbers. We're going to change dates of birth. We're going to change the names, and they have to look valid. So if they're over 18, then they should show up as over 18. If they're under 18, they should show up as significantly under. And if they're right in if they're within 5 or 6 days, we want to stay. If you push them a little bit further over or a little bit further under, so nobody can identify them. And there are tools and processes to do that. You can write them yourself. It depends what you're doing, but they're relatively expensive. You probably have them in place already. The question I would ask is how much delay are they causing? How expensive are they, and what value are they adding? You can, of course, create your own scenarios while you're running your tests. And if you're using test environments, what we like to do is we like to have the accounts see a separate. The test accounts we create see a separate universe, so there's no overlap. And then you delete what you do beforehand, because otherwise, when you go in, you'll see the previous one. I did work on an application that was reverse sorted, so you would see all the orders from the earliest in history to the current. So what would happen is, and I think they were just for today, you could say, just show me today's orders. So if you ran the tool 10 times in a day in a test environment that didn't clean up after itself, you would get the new order you just made would appear on the second page, because there were 10 older orders for today on the page. So whatever tooling you had to be smart enough to have an if statement in it to find that link, or it would break. And then if it's not in that, that's if do it again, do it again, do it again, do it again. So you start making code that's pretty smart. And when you do that, test code. When you do that, it gets to be brittle and hard to maintain, buggy. So we want to get out of that business. So can we either inject the order, because it doesn't matter, but no, we're trying to prove that this is the order creation process flow. So we're trying to, okay, then how do we change the user interface, create an affordance, find some way, because the order number was on the screen. So it would be create a regular expression that finds the first 10-digit number that's on the screen, or the last 10-digit number that's on the screen in this case, that has a radio button by it, and then look at the HTML and figure out what the radio button is and click it. That ID is going to match your string. So there's a dance. There's not a lot of testability in that kind of interface. And I just went down a whole bunny trail, and we're at 10 minutes already. Thanks for listening. That's test data management. There's a whole lot more in the book. Every strategy that I outlined here in a sentence is going to have 2 pages. So hope you like it. Thanks for listening. Bye.